Today, we are digging into one of the most brilliant, kind of counterintuitive marketing strategies in modern music. Seriously, it's not just about selling records, it's a whole blueprint for turning your absence into authority and your silence into a global phenomenon. It's the story of how a mysterious figure from Toronto didn't just break the rules of the industry, he completely rewrote them by weaponizing one single powerful idea. This is the story of what we're calling the Weeknd Index. To really get this, we have to go back to a very specific time, a very specific place. A moment when a new sound just emerged from the darkness and started changing everything. I mean, just think about that for a second. This wasn't some big budget major label push. This was not a polished pop star making a grand debut. Nope. This was a sound that felt like it was seeping up through the cracks in the street. It was dark, it was cinematic, and it was completely and utterly anonymous. The music was making a huge statement, but the artist was a ghost. And right away, that question became an obsession. You gotta remember, this was the era of music blogs and online forums, and this was the mystery everyone was trying to solve. The music just showed up, perfectly formed like this dark crystal of sound, but with no face, no name, no backstory. It was just pure art existing in a total vacuum. And that vacuum, it created this incredible gravitational pull that just sucked everybody in. So here's the thing that's so wild about it. This anonymity, it wasn't an accident, not at all. It was a cold, calculated, and systematic decision. Think about it. In 2011, right at the dawn of the Instagram era, when every artist was being told to share everything, Abel Tesfaye, the guy we now know as The Weeknd, he made this totally radical choice. He figured that in a world of constant oversharing, the most powerful thing you could do was create a void. He chose to sell a shadow, not a face, forcing the audience to fill in the blanks with their own curiosity. And that, right there, was the moment he committed to the index. So why, right? You gotta ask why. Choose this path of deliberate mystery when literally everyone else was clawing for the spotlight. Well, the answer wasn't just some clever marketing gimmick. It was actually a survival strategy, born from some really deep personal pressures that basically forced him to invent a new way forward. I mean, look at the raw ingredients here. You've got a high school dropout, someone living with a lot of instability, really grappling with his own mind. He was battling this deep-seated belief that he just didn't have the right look to be a pop star. In the super visual world of music, that's supposed to be a career killer. But for him, this thing he saw as a weakness, it became the trigger for his greatest strength. It literally forced him to build a whole new system, one that was designed to completely bypass the industry's biases. And this right here, this illustrates his whole method perfectly. He systematically uncoupled the art from the artist. The music was cinematic, dark, otherworldly, all these powerful, cool descriptions. But the artist himself, a giant question mark. And by creating that separation, he let the persona of the Weeknd become this mythic thing, something way bigger and more interesting than any one person could ever be. The art was the star. The artist, for the time being, was irrelevant. And his commitment to this idea went deep. I mean, all the way down to the spelling of his name. He didn't just hide his face, he actually changed his identity to put distance between himself and his past. Dropping that E wasn't just a cool style choice, it was a symbolic act of erasure. Just another meticulous step in stripping away the person to build up the myth. Okay, so we've seen the personal reasons, the why, but how does all this build into a formal strategy? Well, now let's get into the cold, hard philosophy behind it. This is the framework that's powered his entire career. This right here is the core idea, the Weeknd Index. It's such a beautiful and totally counterintuitive concept. While literally everyone else is out there screaming for attention, flooding the world with content, this philosophy says that the most powerful way to grab people's focus is to create an absence of information. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it turns out so does human curiosity. By saying nothing, you make people lean in, desperate to hear even a whisper. So how does this index actually work? Well, it pretty much rests on 3 core pillars. First, there's the anonymous entry mandate. Basically, sound before soul. This means your work has to be so undeniably good that it creates the demand for you, not the other way around. The art sells you. Second, the Cinematic Persona Doctrine. His career isn't just a string of albums, it's a series of movies. Each era has its own distinct costume, its own story, its own character. And third, the value of awkward silence rule. The The guy rarely does interviews. His words are a scarce resource, and because they're scarce, they're incredibly valuable. Every word he does say carries way more weight. Now, having a philosophy is one thing, but execution, well, that's everything. How did he actually create a sound that was so unique, so perfected that it could stand all on its own, without a face or a story? The answer lies in the disciplined, almost hardcore systems he built around his creative process. Yeah, this wasn't some mystical, spontaneous thing. It was engineered. He had these strict routines of creative isolation to protect his focus. But the most fascinating system, by far, is the sonic first iteration. Instead of starting with lyrics, he'd sing melodic gibberish over a track. He was literally searching for the perfect vocal frequency, the right vibration, the pure feeling his voice could create. The emotion came first. The words were then built to match that feeling. And then there was the chipping away protocol. And, well, this number says it all. 50+ mixes for a single track. Just let that sink in for a second. This is an obsessive level of refinement, a relentless, non-stop pursuit of technical perfection. It proves that this otherworldly vibe, that signature sound that feels so effortless and atmospheric, is actually the result of painstaking, meticulous, systematic hard work. It's engineered perfection. So the big question, did the index work? Did this whole grand experiment in anonymity and engineered sound actually pay off? Well, I think the results kind of speak for themselves. This is how you go from a homeless dropout to a global icon. I mean, just look at this trajectory. It's a masterclass in playing the long game. From The Shadows in 2011 to a #1 album just 4 years later, right when the mystery had hit a boiling point. Then to the absolute pinnacle of culture, headlining the Super Bowl halftime show, a stage reserved for the biggest stars on the planet. And finally, breaking records as the first artist ever to hit 100 million monthly listeners. He didn't just enter the market, he completely dominated it. And his legacy is huge. He basically proved that creative isolation doesn't have to hold you back. It can be a tool for total cultural saturation. He pretty much institutionalized era-based marketing, this whole idea that an artist can completely shed their skin and become a new character for each album. He showed an entire generation of artists that you can build a massive global brand by being less visible, not more. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important point. Because this really isn't just a story about a pop star. The Weeknd Index offers a universal lesson about value, attention, and the surprising power of what you choose not to share. This is really the profound idea at the heart of it all. In a world that is just saturated with noise, where everyone is broadcasting every single thought, the rarest thing is silence. The most intriguing thing is the unanswered question. Attention is like a current, and as this whole strategy proves, it will always, always flow to fill a void. By being absent, you create that void. So what's the big takeaway here for you? It's a powerful idea that just flips conventional wisdom completely on its head. Don't build a personal brand and then try to sell something. Instead, systematically build a brand of scarcity. Perfect your work in private. Make it so exceptional, so undeniable that the world demands to know who you are. Let the quality of your work create the demand for your identity. And really, that's the final crucial point. Power doesn't always come from shouting the loudest. Real influence often comes from strategic silence. It comes from having the confidence to just let your work speak for itself, knowing that one carefully chosen whisper can easily drown out a whole chorus of shouts. And so we'll leave you with this question. In your own work, in your own life, how can you leverage this power of absence? In an age of total overexposure, maybe the most radical thing you can do is hold something back, to build a little mystery, and to let the world wonder. How will you use your silence?